Hello, hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Miranda. Hello, if you're new here. Thank you so much for stopping by. I love making videos about motherhood, so I'm especially excited about this video today. I have a little pregnancy 101, if you will, and what to actually expect if you're expecting. So I say we just jump right in. I'm gonna give you a little background on me. So I have an adopted son who is 7.5, and then after many years of trying to get pregnant, we got pregnant and actually lost our first baby. And then I went on to have two healthy pregnancies, and I have two very healthy little girls now, which is such a big blessing. So during that, I learned a lot about pregnancy and birth and postpartum. And I'm someone who, when I experience something new like pregnancy, I dive in deep and I do the research, and I just like to know all the things. I'm the person at the doctor or wherever you are saying, okay, tell me all the details. Don't leave anything out. I don't care if it's TMI, I want to know all the things. So in doing that research and just experiencing being pregnant and going through all of that and the changes that occur in yourself and in your body and in your preferences and ideas, really, it's so interesting and cool and such a kind of curveball at the same time, but something that I really enjoyed. And so with that, I want to share some things that I learned in my pregnancies and from being pregnant around multiple other people both times, which was so awesome and such a blessing. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but just being immersed in birth and labor experience in general. And like I said, doing lots of research. These are some things that I learned that you'll actually expect when you're expecting. Now, I'm sure we've all heard of the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. And while books are amazing, I have a few, I'll link some below that I really, really loved and have read a couple of them multiple times actually during both pregnancies. They are such great resources and things to, look into when you're like, oh my gosh, this is happening. Is this normal? What should I expect? What am I going to be asked at my next appointment? And they're great points of reference, which I really appreciate. But I feel like some of those books too are just so unrealistic and hard to relate to, because sometimes you just need to hear it from the source, right? You need to hear it from the mom who's experienced it. So today I hope that I can help you get just more of a real life picture of what to expect during pregnancy. Now, the first thing I want to point out that you should expect during pregnancy is that your pregnancy will be unlike anyone else's. In fact, it'll probably be like any pregnancy you experience if you have more than one child. So please go into this video knowing that just because I am saying it doesn't mean it's true for everyone. And just because you're hearing it from other people doesn't mean it's going to be true for you. Because I have been surrounded by so many pregnant people when I was pregnant. And let me tell you, our experiences, while there were many similarities, they were all drastically different. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. You find out you're pregnant, you get that positive test, and you are like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have a baby. What do you do? So first, I would say call your midwife or call your OB. If you're not sure who that is, search locally, ask friends. Maybe you have a local Facebook page and be like, oh my gosh, who do you guys see for pregnancy? But hopefully you have at least a general idea of who you want to see or what kind of provider you want to see. So give them a call. Now you're probably like, okay, so I'm going there tomorrow, right? I'm going to go see my OB or my midwife tomorrow. Chances are probably not. So yes, you just found out you're pregnant, and yes, you're excited and you want to see this baby and you want to hear the heartbeat, but chances are you probably won't actually be seen until you're maybe 6 to 8 weeks along. Now, of course, this is highly dependent on the situation, and that will be for anything I talk about in this video. Highly dependent on you and your specific, individual case, whatever that may be. But in general, you probably won't be seen until week 6 to 8, maybe even 12. And at that appointment, I'm sure you're thinking, I'm going to see my baby, right? Well, maybe not. Sometimes you will get an initial ultrasound so that you can get that dating scan to see an estimate of when your due date might be. But first off, if you're really early, you're not going to see much in that. There's not going to be a baby that looks like a baby, but a tiny little ball of something may be there when you're at that ultrasound. But honestly, if not, it's not something to be super afraid of. While it is the biggest blessing when you find out you're pregnant and so exciting, you're just like, let me see this baby. I would maybe wait to set your expectations until you have that first appointment so you can learn your provider's timelines and kind of how things work in their clinic or wherever you are, so that you don't set your hopes like extremely high to see a baby and they're like, oh no, today's not an ultrasound, you have to come back next time, or whatever that may be. Okay, now if at this point you're feeling good, I would suggest you to take a deep breath, take it all in, and enjoy the time while you're feeling great. It might last a long time or it might not. So just enjoy it. Enjoy the experience of finding out that you're pregnant. Allow yourself to get giddy and excited. And at this point, you can decide, like, who am I going to tell? So maybe you have a spouse or someone that you're having this child with that you want to surprise or tell in some way. Maybe they found out with you, which is so fun. But also, I would say if you want to tell people, tell them. There are no rules when it comes to announcing your pregnancy, and that is ultimately up to you. Some people want to wait until after their first trimester to make sure the baby is healthy, and if you want to do that, then that is perfectly okay. But if you're like, gosh, I am so excited about this and I can't wait to shout it from the rooftops, do it. One thing that I have heard recommended, which I feel like is a good piece of advice, especially if you do have a little bit of anxiety about telling people about your pregnancy before you know that baby is healthy, or, things happen during pregnancy, which is horribly sad. I've experienced that myself, having a miscarriage, and it is really, really sad. But even when I was pregnant the next time, I didn't hesitate to tell people. So if you have that hesitation or a little bit of anxiety about telling people you're pregnant before you're in the safe zone, if you will, then I would say if you would want them to know that you had a miscarriage, then I would say it's very safe to tell them that you had a pregnancy. Now, sorry to start off this on the kind of that sadder note, but that's just kind of the realities of pregnancy, right? But if you don't have those anxieties or hesitations, then I say tell who you want, because pregnancy is something to be celebrated. Okay, next thing to expect is that you need to start a prenatal if you're not already. Many people, when they're trying to get pregnant, they start taking a prenatal at that time because it's definitely not going to hurt you. But if you're not, I highly recommend getting started on that right now. You want to have that baby and yourself growing healthy and strong, and so start that prenatal as soon as possible. One brand that I've really enjoyed, I've tried, at least 5 different brands, I would say. Some of them are rough on the stomach, but the Ritual Prenatal I really enjoyed because it kind of tastes lemony, which was nice and kind of fresh when you took it. And so that one worked really well for me. But of course, ask your midwife or OB for recommendations if you aren't sure what to take. The next thing that you should know if you're expecting is that morning sickness isn't guaranteed, but also it might not just be in the morning. So some people in their pregnancy will get really, really intense morning sickness and end up having to take medication just to help them, keep food down. But sometimes in my pregnancies, especially my first one, I never had morning sickness. And honestly, it was something that put a little bit of fear in me, like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting sick. Like, is my baby not growing? And that was absolutely not the case. So if you're not having morning sickness, do not allow it to give you, fear or anxiety over that baby that's growing. Sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't, and that's okay. Of course, if you do get it, there are some things that you can do. I don't have a ton of recommendations since I didn't personally experience really intense morning sickness, but with our second daughter, I did definitely have bouts of nausea. They honestly, for me, were not always in the morning. It would come and go throughout the day, especially when I got really tired at night. Honestly, it would get the worst, I would say. But one thing I would do is before I lifted my head off the pillow, I would have crackers by my bed and I would eat a cracker of some kind or get something in my mouth, eating something, or water. Sometimes plain water, though, would make me nauseous. So I would have some lemon in it or maybe some juice, whatever it may be for you. I have heard orange juice does amazing for some women, so maybe try that if you are experiencing morning sickness. Another thing was sucking on hard candies. That was always really great. And then just never being hungry. So during pregnancy, expect to snack a lot, especially at the beginning if you are experiencing morning sickness. Now, I think that was probably the best thing for me, was just always making sure I never got to the point of being starving. Like, I never allowed myself to become extremely hungry because then I would get nauseous. Nothing would sound good and it would start this vicious cycle. So have snacks with you everywhere. I am like the snack queen. I do this pregnant or not. I always have snacks with me. So, in your purse, your bag, whatever it may be, have a protein bar in there or some beef jerky, have, fruit or whatever it may be that is going to help you, or at least keep your belly a little bit full so you never get too hungry. Hopefully that will help your morning sickness. Okay, now one of the first things when you get pregnant, you're going to say, oh my gosh, when am I due? And of course, you want to know that due date, right? But I will guess you're probably not as far pregnant as you think you are. So when you get pregnant, it would make sense in your head if you're like, oh my gosh, I know when I conceived, so that must be day 1. It's not. It is quite confusing. And so you may think that you're just a couple weeks pregnant, or, oh my gosh, I'm only 5 days pregnant and I have this positive pregnancy test. And that's actually not true. So when you get a positive pregnancy test, you're at least 3 weeks. And that is really, really early pregnancy test. So like maybe you're somewhere between 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks pregnant, especially if you catch it on time. So your due date is actually calculated by the first day of your last period. That's considered day 1. There are so many calculators online. You can put that date in and it'll give you your estimated due date. And then, like I said, eventually you'll go in for that dating ultrasound if you choose to do ultrasounds, and they will give you an estimate based off the size of your baby, which again, might be a little bit different. We all ovulate on different schedules, and all of that comes into play when your due date is being calculated. So hold that date loosely. Something else that you should expect when you're pregnant is that at some point you're going to be mentally or physically exhausted. Probably both. And it's okay. You're going to get through it. Your body is working really hard to create this baby inside of you. Maybe you have multiple babies. And I would just know that at some point you're going to be tired. You're going to be exhausted. If you have no other kids, I would highly recommend get those naps in. If you do, try to sleep when your babies sleep. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't take my own advice there. I am not someone who often sleeps when my babies sleep, but there were absolutely days when I was pregnant with our second daughter that there was no chance I was staying awake when my other daughter was napping. Like, no chance. I already had an adopted son at the time too. And so when I was pregnant, it never was just me. I always had children. And so you find ways to, even play and rest at the same time. Maybe it's, hey, we're not going to go for a walk today, but let's do a puzzle on the ground. And you can rest on the ground and do a puzzle that's not exerting yourself too much, but you're still able to be around other kids if you have other children. So find ways to relax. It's okay to have movies on the couch for multiple days in a row. Sometimes you just have to do it. Listen to your body, rest if you need to, and really just try to find ways that you're able to just take a break here and there. Whether maybe when your husband gets home from work, you're like, hey, I just need 10 minutes just to close my eyes and decompress for a second. Or maybe you do need to take, that power nap at 5 o'clock, because I know when I was in my first trimester, that was one of my biggest symptoms with both pregnancies, is I was just purely exhausted. And I am like a go, go, go. There is not much that stops me. But I was so tired a few weeks there. And I had to just take power naps sometimes just to get through the rest of the day. And it definitely didn't affect my sleep at night. I still was able to sleep usually. So rest if you can, or just take those moments to yourself. Find something calm to do if you have other children that's not exerting, but is still allowing you to be with your kids, and you will get through it, I promise. Something else that happened this last pregnancy that didn't with my first daughter is I had crazy insomnia. Now, this can happen at different times of your pregnancy. I think it's hormone related, but the insomnia was real, man. And I am not someone who has struggled with sleep in my life, in normal times. And so it was rough. And again, this doesn't play well into the whole already exhausted because you're growing a baby thing. But again, it will get better. There is medication that you can take. Definitely consult your doctor with this. I never personally took any. I just kind of powered through it because it didn't last my entire pregnancy and it did stop. But that is something that could happen to you. And so be prepared that some days you're just going to be tired. So we all hear about pregnancy cravings, right? And sending your significant other to the store to get your ice cream so you can have it with your pickles or whatever it may be for you. And while I never craved ice cream and pickles, I will say that food cravings and aversions are very real. So, a couple examples for me personally. I am not an egg person. I'll eat them like hard boiled and as egg salad. That's it. Don't give me an egg sandwich like ever in my life. But this last pregnancy, my daughter's almost 1. So this last pregnancy, I craved breakfast sandwiches like nobody's business. Like, give me eggs, bacon, cheese on a croissant, and you have a happy woman. Every day of my pregnancy, I would eat one if you offered it to me. That was something that was very odd for me, someone who literally, if I'm eating breakfast, like it's pancakes and syrup. Like, I don't like eggs. So that has also continued postpartum now, which I'll take as a blessing because I think that's like a good thing that I like eggs now. But that was something that was very strange that happened. And then also the same with meat. So we're not a huge meat family, definitely not vegetarians, but I never ever would go to a restaurant and like order a burger. If I'm being served one, I would eat it, but I would never ever order something with beef in it unless it was like a delicious steak. Like, give me all the steak. But with my pregnancy with my 3-year-old, all I wanted was cheeseburgers. Now, I was iron deficient, so sometimes these cravings mean something. I was significantly iron deficient in both my pregnancies, and in both pregnancies, I craved meat. So do cue into those cravings because they may mean something for you. And it's not bad to bring that up at your, midwife or OB appointment and be like, hey, I'm really craving this. Like, would this mean something? Sometimes it'll just be like, no, that's just pickles and ice cream. Like, that's just odd. But for me, I was extremely iron deficient. And so I did need that red meat in my diet to help up my iron along with other things. But listen to the pregnancy cravings and aversions and know they are real, and I would expect them. Another joyous part of pregnancy that affected me a lot in both pregnancies, so I'm not going to leave it out, is to expect constipation probably some point in your pregnancy, especially at the end. Pregnancy slows your digestion, and so obviously that makes it harder for food to go through you and can cause a whole host of issues. So if you feel like you're getting constipated, I would highly recommend get on top of it as fast as you can. One of the best things that worked for me is taking magnesium. You can take the Natural Calm drink, or there's gummies. There are a bunch of other magnesium options, but it's a good natural thing to use during pregnancy that worked very well. And then obviously upping your water intake is great. And the trick I learned my last pregnancy, because like I said, this was a really big struggle of mine. I have cystic fibrosis, and so I already have genetic disease affecting my digestion. And so that on top of them being pregnant just exacerbated it even more. And so one trick I learned for a very natural way to get rid of and help your constipation is taking about a spoonful, I don't know, maybe a tablespoon or 2 of butter, melt it in a cup. And then you're going to add room temperature, 6 or 8 ounces. I always use those small mason jars because we just have those for our cups. So a small little, it's an 8-ounce mason jar, I think. 6 to 8 ounces of room temperature prune juice. Put that in with the butter. Now, it sounds disgusting, but I swear to you, it's not even bad going down at all. I was like, prepare, you're going to throw up. You're already so nauseous in pregnancy. And I'm like, am I really going to drink this? I'm just going to puke it all up. But it actually wasn't bad at all. It was just like a smooth, sweet drink, honestly. Drink that down. My mind was blown. It helped so much. And this was me I had to go to Miralax, magnesium, all this stuff just to keep, things moving. And I did that. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I could have just been drinking prune juice and butter this whole time. So that is an amazing tip that I learned. Do not forget that one. Keep that in here. If you're pregnant, going to be pregnant, you deal with constipation, prune juice and butter. It works so well. Okay, along with constipation, a little TMI here, but it is possible that you'll get hemorrhoids. Now, sometimes this doesn't happen until you're actually pushing out your baby because of all the pressure it makes the hemorrhoids happen. But you also have a lot of extra blood flow when you're pregnant because you're getting all this blood to the baby. And so it can also, internally do hemorrhoids, oftentimes because of constipation. All the things line up in a train and then it's they explode and you're like, no, my body. But they happen to me for sure. So a couple tips I have with them. At the first sign of hemorrhoids or constipation happening, just like get on it. Like I said with the magnesium, get the magnesium going just to prevent it as much as possible. But a couple tips if you do have hemorrhoids or you are getting them. First is don't bring your phone to the toilet. You want to go to the bathroom and get off the toilet as fast as you can. The longer you're sitting there, the more pressure you're having to create worse or more hemorrhoids. So don't bring your phone with you to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom and stand up and be done. If you're having a hard time using the restroom because you are constipated, take a break. Like leave and then come back if you need to. But sit on that toilet for as little time as possible. Another thing you can do if you're having pain associated with them is an Epsom salt bath or a sitz bath. So the sitz bath is just a little thing that sits on your toilet. So you literally can sit in the warm water with the Epsom salts or whatever you choose to put in them. Just plain Epsom salts are great. So you can do that, or you literally can just fill a tub with a little bit of water, get a nice little bath and put Epsom salts in it, which will help. Just the pain can be very bad. And so having the bath helps with the pain relief as well as helps the swelling of the hemorrhoids for them to go down quicker. Applying witch hazel on a cotton round directly to the affected area is helpful. Also, when you have a baby, you can get those witch hazel liners, which I talk about in my postpartum must-haves, which I'll link down below and up above. But having witch hazel liners, you can line those, in your underwear with a pad of some kind of panty liner underneath it to help with hemorrhoids during pregnancy as well. Another physical thing that happened to me during pregnancies and is super common is Charlie horses. They are real and they are painful. They are so painful. My daughter is here now, so hopefully she stays quiet and isn't too distracting. But back on the Charlie horses. So Charlie horses are definitely a super common thing to experience during pregnancy. They are awful, and man, being woken up by one of those is probably like the worst thing ever. So a couple of things that help me. First off, again, taking that magnesium supplement that will help with the cramping, and then also magnesium lotion. These often happen when you are sleeping. So putting some magnesium lotion on your legs before you go to bed could help prevent Charlie horses. And then something that would happen when they were happening, so that I would do that helped, is the second I felt like my leg was about to cramp up, I would jump out of bed as fast as I could, stand up straight so my foot was flat. And sometimes just doing that and not allowing the muscle to cramp up would stop the Charlie horse immediately. Now, if it didn't, I would start massaging it out as well as I could. Now, it's extremely painful, but it's not as painful as a Charlie horse continuing. So I would stand up out of bed the second I was woken up by any kind of cramping pain, flatten my foot as flat as I could, and then rub out my calf if it started. So I hope that they don't happen to you, but if they do, there's a couple tips. There's some more you can look up, but Charlie horses are a very real part of pregnancy. Okay, had to take a slight intermission to help my toddler. But another thing that you should expect during pregnancy is to be swarmed with questions. Now, of course, you'll get questions from friends and family and all of that, but more specifically, expect to be asked a lot of questions from your midwife or OB or whoever is taking care of you and your baby during your pregnancy. There are going to be so many choices that you have to make during pregnancy, but also especially during labor and after your baby is born. So I would highly recommend that you look into those things, whether that's by looking at books, which I can recommend a couple below, but also watching different people or practitioners that are on YouTube. I've gotten a lot of education from people who are actually, certified to give education and share their knowledge about these things. Obviously, watching videos like this is super helpful, but make sure you just do your research. I'd highly recommend not just choosing to say yes to everything or even to say no to everything. Do your research, look into things, because ultimately, those decisions are in your hands, and make sure your provider is allowing you to make those choices. Sometimes people or, OBs or midwives have strong ideas about certain things that you should or shouldn't do, but remember, you are yours and your baby's advocate, and do not allow anyone to strip you from that. So do your research and make the choices that are best for you and for your baby and not for anyone else. Sometimes during pregnancy, you're going to get gut feelings, and I highly recommend and encourage you to trust them. Go with your gut. Now, this could be about maybe, like I said, some questions you've been asked about what you want your labor to look like. If you have gut feelings about that, go with it. Trust your gut. There's a reason for it. Or maybe you're like, man, I haven't felt my baby, kick, or I have this weird pain going on. It just doesn't feel normal. If you're questioning it and concerned, or it's causing you to, be thinking about it a lot or giving you any anxiety, go with your gut and ask your provider, because there could be something pointing to, a different issue that's going on. Or maybe they'll just say, don't worry, that is totally normal. It'll pass. But at least then you have the peace of mind that, okay, I brought it up. I talked about it. It's been recorded. And if there's any other issue going forward, we'll know what to do from there. So the last thing to expect when you're expecting is that you may just love being pregnant. Now, I know that's probably not the most common thing that you hear from people, because pregnancy is hard and some people have extremely, extremely difficult pregnancies. And I feel for them, and don't discount that. You don't know what another woman is going through during her pregnancy. Things can be, physically, mentally, emotionally very taxing during pregnancy. There are so many different factors, of course, but I don't want it to all be negative. And I feel like a lot of times when people are talking about pregnancy, like, oh, I just want it to be over. This is awful. Can my baby just be here? But I want you to know that that's not always the case. You can enjoy your pregnancy. And even if you're having hard times during your pregnancy, you still can change that mindset to enjoy it and think about the positives. You're bringing this beautiful life into the world. And yes, your body is working so hard to grow this baby. And yes, some things are really, really difficult. But I am proof that you can enjoy your pregnancy. Now, I didn't have anything super horrible during my pregnancies. My pregnancies weren't just like peachy keen and perfect, but even when it was hard, even when hard decisions had to be made, or I wasn't feeling great, or my sciatic was flaring up, whatever it may be, I loved being pregnant. Like I said, I waited so many years to be pregnant, and so maybe that plays into it. But also, I think that just knowing that you're about to bring this beautiful life into the world, it's okay to be excited to be pregnant. It's okay to enjoy it. And even if people around you are pregnant and they're grumbling and complaining, or they're in pain, if people around you are in pain and they can't wait for their pregnancy to be over, again, you don't know their story. You don't know why they feel that way, but it's okay to not feel that way. I often felt like I need to be like, man, yeah, this pregnancy is so hard, when I wasn't feeling that way. And, really, I didn't have to think that or feel that way, or, make people feel better by saying that I didn't like pregnancy, because I actually did. I loved being pregnant. It was hard and it was challenging, but I really, truly enjoyed it. So I just want you to know that even though pregnancy can be hard and there are so many things that are unknown or crazy, weird things happening to your body, that it's okay to enjoy it. It's okay to love being pregnant. And you don't need to have an excuse or have a reason or apologize for enjoying being pregnant, because I love being pregnant. And I know that's not everyone's story, but I want you to believe that it is possible to enjoy your pregnancy. Okay, so I'm going to be breaking this into a part 1 and part 2, because this video is getting very long and I have so many things to share. So that was the end of part 1, a little pregnancy 101, what to actually expect when you're expecting. So whether you are pregnant, hoping to be pregnant one day, or maybe you're on your 3rd or 7th baby, I hope that this was helpful and that you learned something today. If you have anything else to share with us, please leave it in the comments down below. I would love to hear it and chat, but I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you later for part 2.